Hello, my name is Catherine Essex-Jones. I'm an improvement specialist in the KPO team here at LTHT. In this learning burst, I'm going to be talking to you about the Leeds Improvement Method concept of level production. This is a tool which can help you improve your business. So what is level production? In the Leeds Improvement Method, level production is defined as a method to achieve an even production of product or service by type or volume. Let's break down what that means. So production is the things that we produce. The definition talks about products and services. In the NHS, we produce lots of different products and services. It could be a clinic appointment, a surgery, a payroll round, or a training course. So let's think about the second part of that definition. We're arranging these products and services by type or volume so we can appropriately schedule them to make the most efficient use of our limited resources. So when would this concept be most useful? So it's going to help us use the time we have available to deliver the most value for our patient. For example, if you're thinking about the case mix, how can we fit the most surgeries into the theatre time available? Or how can we ensure that our outpatient clinic maximises its utilisation? Back to the definition. So level or even production is important as it helps us spread the workload across the time available and across the resources available. And that's fair for people doing the job, which kind of links back to our Leeds Way values. There are 4 types of production schedule. These are once a month, once a week, once a day, and of course, level production. To select an appropriate production schedule, we'll need to consider a number of factors. These include lead time for service delivery, the work in the process. So think about this as the number of patients or customers waiting at different stages of the process. If you think about an A&E visit, patients are going to be waiting at the start for their initial assessment. They're then going to be waiting again to see the doctor. And then finally for their final tests or treatment. There's going to be a number of patients waiting at each of those stages and perhaps some bottlenecks at certain stages. You're also going to have to think about the resources needed. So this is the amount of supplies or equipment or any resource that you need in one production run. It could have storage implications. An example of this is the amount of resources needed to run a weekly payroll versus a monthly payroll. It's going to be more for the monthly payroll. And finally, you need to consider changeover frequency. This relates to the frequency needed to change over or switch between tasks. That's going to be a challenge of introducing level production. If the tasks aren't uniform, there'll be a very high changeover frequency. We'll now go through each of the production schedules in turn. So first, once a month production. In once a month production schedules, the production frequency occurs once a month. The lead time for the service delivery is very long. An entire month's demand is produced in a single production run. This is quite rare in direct patient care settings, but quite common in administrative areas. As I said before, in payroll or expenses, if you run your expenses and you've just missed the monthly payroll, you're going to be waiting till the next month to get your expenses paid. It happens usually when the demand is extremely low, as it results in only one production opportunity per month. As I said before, an example could be the monthly payroll at LTHT. Second, we've got once a week production. So this is all the month's demand for each production type is produced in 4 equal parts, weekly. More common in direct patient care settings and happens when the demand is moderate. So an entire month's worth of different types of patients can now be seen in weekly, split over 4 weeks to produce 4 single production runs. This results in 1 production opportunity per week. An example of this could be a weekly MDT for a cancer specialty. So if patients don't have their appointments or scans in time to be discussed at the weekly MDT, they'll have to wait another week. This could have implications for their care and their outcomes. Finally, we've got once a day production. So monthly demand is split by the number of production days in a month. It happens daily. It's very common in direct patient care settings and happens when the demand is high. And it results in that 1 production opportunity per day. Finally, we have level production, where production is spread out to match customer demand. This is our ideal state that we want to achieve, and it results in one-piece flow. As demand changes, the production schedule might need some fine-tuning. So it's quite a flexible thing that you have to be constantly looking at to make sure you are meeting that customer demand. It's definitely going to be the most difficult to achieve. I already spoke about the challenges of the changeover frequency being very high, and you're going to have to be constantly thinking about how you adapt it, be flexible. So due to that schedule flexibility, it responds to any demand level and results in production as required by demand, which is what we want. So how do you know which schedule to use? You can use something called the production rate formula to determine the pace of production. To calculate the production rate, you divide your total production requirements by the operating days in a day, week or month, whatever demand you're looking at. For example, if you're required to deliver 80 clinic appointments per month, that's your demand of products, you need to divide this by your available capacity, which could be 20 working days. This would give you a production rate of 4 appointments per day. Production rates must be met to satisfy demand, and this is a really helpful tool you can use to help with demand and capacity planning. As we described earlier, level production is the ideal and helps us to achieve one-piece flow. This is as opposed to batch production, which is all about arranging products and services into large product or service-specific lots. For example, this could be waiting until you've taken blood samples on a number of patients before sending these to the lab. Also, the lab could then wait until it has a certain number of samples before loading these onto a machine for analysis. Level production, on the other hand, places products or services into an arrangement that matches the required production rate, as per the formula that we've just looked at, and tries to ensure there are no customers or products waiting. Do you remember our work in process, or WIP, from the previous slide? We don't want those patients waiting for the next stage in the process. We don't want that bottlenecking or batching. Generally, when we batch, we set things up in a way that's perceived to be easy for us, whereas level production is better from the perspective of the patient or customer. That links back to our definition of value within the Leeds Improvement Method, where value is seen from the perspective of the customer. Improvements in batched processes are focusing on maximising individual processes. An example of this could be scheduling appointments when patients need and want them, rather than limiting appointments to once a week production schedule of Tuesday morning clinic, because that's the way it's always been in a consultant's job plan. The philosophy of level production is to produce just what is needed, when it is needed, and in the amounts needed. Improvements in level production are focused on maximising the entire operation within the framework of the time available. Can you think of any examples of batching in your area of work which could be improved? Let's see an example of the power of level versus batch production in an LTHT context. The Leeds Improvement Method and level production in action. So what's the impact of achieving level production in practice? Click on the link in the notes for this video entitled Breast Cancer Team RPIW Report Out, Banish the Batch. It's a great example of an improvement project at LTHT which utilised level production to make an improvement to patient care and, of course, banish the batch. Production cycle chart is a visual depiction of a level schedule. It's a wheel-like illustration that shows a production pattern. The pattern is repeated throughout the day, week, or month. For example, when planning a clinic, you may have 3 different appointment types. A is new, B is follow-up, and C is complex patients. Each appointment type may have a different timing and resource requirements, hence the very high change of frequency we have in level production environments. You can use production cycle charts within one of the 3 methods or strategies to maintain level production. There are 3 strategies or methods you can use to maintain level production. These are the non-reserved method, the baton passing method, and the bypass method. We'll now explore these in further detail. First up is the non-reserved method. This is a method of improving schedule performance. You can use a production cycle chart, which we talked about earlier in the video. Each production cycle chart contains 1 or 2 available or non-reserved slots, spare seats if you will. The non-reserved slot is filled with excess cycle time or unexpected demand. For example, a hot clinic could have the vacant slot filled the day before with whichever demand is highest at that point in time. This method works really well when the demand is not always predictable in advance. It means you can be very flexible to what is currently the highest demand. It would be a really good method to use when you can't fully predict demand in advance and need that flexibility. Next up, we have the baton passing method. This makes the most efficient use of a level production schedule by sharing the workload between different operators to make the most effective use of their time. In this example, in one consulting room, 9 tasks are performed in order by specific operators. However, some tasks can be performed by multiple operators, as you can see here. Therefore, different operators can take on different tasks to support a level production schedule. In this example, we split the tasks to indicate the multiple operators who can perform them, depending on the demands of the day. There are operator-specific tasks, such as check-in, which is always performed by the receptionist, and baton passing tasks, such as taking weight. The healthcare assistant usually takes weight, but the receptionist can also perform this task if there are more patients waiting in the process at this point in time. You can use a percent load chart to level tasks across operators. In the baton passing method, we are really thinking about who needs to do each task rather than the way we've always done it. This method works really well when you have limited additional staffing, yet want to implement level production. Workforce planning can help us meet demand if we don't have any additional resource. Finally, we have the bypass method. This is where certain tasks are separated out of the process to avoid interrupting the flow. In this example, the surgery scheduling process cycle time is long, so the flow is separated, with the surgery scheduler bypassing part of the process to avoid interrupting the flow. This method should be used when you have a long task, which can be taken outside of a process without impacting the flow. You can use setup reduction to identify appropriate tasks. Level production is closely linked with the Leeds Improvement concept of PQ, or product quantity analysis. PQ analysis is a method that allows you to categorize your demand into specific families of products or services. It's closely linked to level production in that you can use your categorizations or product families from PQ analysis to define your different production types when using a production cycle chart, for example. In summary, level production is a method to achieve an even flow of production types and volumes. It uses current market needs to determine the production pace. What do we mean by production? We might produce clinic outcomes, surgery outcomes, training, or reports. Why is it important to achieve level production? It gives us the best possible opportunity to meet our demand. It maximizes the effective use of our resources and minimizes the challenge of variable work volumes. It can also even the burden of work across team members. You can use 4 types of production schedule. These are once a month, once a week, once a day, and of course level production. There are 3 strategies you can use to achieve or maintain level production. These are the non-reserve method, the baton passing method, or the bypass method. Thank you very much for listening today, and please get in touch if you have any further questions.